Dr. Cleaner, hand over the RD4 head.
It belongs in a museum.
So do you.
That's not nice.
Oh, sorry, Dad. This is the head off of one of these 4G series tractors. Lefty could live eternally.
That is really not good. That's why our oil was over full.
Yeah.
It had water in it.
Bit of a discovery here. We just pulled the valve cover off and we got the head almost ready to pull the valves off, but it is just saturated and dripping in water. And I think that's just partly from the heat. When it gets in that oil up here in the head, it just evaporated. We pulled the valve cover off and just water dripped everywhere. So we got a problem somewhere, and it is not looking good for Lefty. We never noticed any problems, and then yesterday when we were running it, we were breaking it in, trying to work it, and then all of a sudden it started steaming a little bit out of the crankcase vent over here, and initially I thought, well, maybe that's just blow by, the rings aren't broke in. But the more we ran it, the more it started steaming. The weird thing is, the water never dropped much in the radiator. I kept an eye on it, and even today it didn't look like it had dropped. But we start taking things apart, and it's an absolute mess in here. You can see right here, you know, cylinder 4 and 1, they started to clean up the wet stacking. We got a little bit in 2 and 3 somewhere, which this middle is to be expected. Any of the residual oil that was in the stack is going to run down in the middle here. But that wet stacking did start to clear up. So the next step, we're going to pull the head off of here, and hopefully that'll give us another clue. Well, we got the head off. Nothing super definitive. Dad and I both think it was the head. We used that old, I got nostalgic. We used the old head off of Lefty, the original 1938 casting head that we know Lefty had water in it, and there was rust and pitting and everything on the bottom side of that head. And I have this new one over here, newer, from 56, off of Hannah, Montana, actually newer than Dad, that we should have used. And that was the original head that was on this engine. Right now we're about 70% sure that's what the problem was, but we can't be 100% sure. Back when we started this project, we put some money into that head. We had the valves done, we had it all fixed up to use, and it was disgusting inside, and there was a lot of crud and debris and rust inside that head. Who knows how long it was sitting outside on Lefty originally. But I got really nostalgic, and even though we had this better head off of Hannah, Montana that was off this engine block, I wanted to use Lefty's head. Plus, we'd already invested money in it. So we did. I'm guessing that's the problem. I think something maybe cracked or broke loose or rusted out inside there. Nothing totally definitive in here, and you can really see my cross-hatching is still in there. Like, no serious issues, nothing looks like it had leaked around the head gasket on any of those. On the flip side, nothing definitive on the bottom of the head either. So, I mean, right here maybe, but I don't see anywhere anything was leaking on the head gasket or on top. The engine, yeah, sure, it could have been leaking internally in the engine, in the water jacket, around the wet sleeves, and it could have been leaking around the sleeves. I called Jim's Automotive machine shop. They're just north of here, about a stone's throw away, to see if they'd want to mess with maybe magnafluxing and fixing up both of these heads, or at least seeing if this one's leaking and fixing that one so we could use it. I'm sure they're super busy, and from the message I got, they are super swamped, and they're small mom and pop. I get it. Like, Dad and I work together. We know how swamped you can get, and on top of a big YouTube channel. That's enough to keep you busy alone. Jim Auto and Machine just called me back. I just want to say thank you, shout out. Great folks, super busy, and I totally get it. What's our plan here, Dad?
Well, we're going to take both of these heads down to a shop. They're going to clean them and inspect them for us, tell us if they're good, and we're going to pick the best one. And if that is indeed this one, we'll have the valves and seats ground and ready to go, and we will use this head back on Lefty.
We have 3 D4400 engine heads here. We got the one off of Lefty in the middle here. We got the 1956 off of Hannah, Montana. And we got the head off of the real McCoy over there, which is a 1947.
So the plan is to take all these. There's a shop in town that actually worked on the head on the RD4 over there. They're going to magnaflux them, check them out, check them for leaks, and we might have them grind some valves, get them going, clean them up, and we'll pick the best one out of the group, whichever one that is.
On a side note, I pulled all the pre-combustion chambers out of the real McCoy head here. Before we decided to take it in, they were all as to be expected, full of corrosion, full of rust, but on the other side, on the bottom side, that's actually the best head of the group. We've got 4, I don't know that they're that good. There's quite a groove up at the top, but there's some sleeves in here I'm going to pull out later. We'll save. I'll yank the fuel pump off of here and pull the cam out too.
You might remember that engine got shelled and had a lot of metal in the filter, so we don't have high hopes for anything off of that engine.
There's the filter out of it. Very sparkly.
I hope you all aren't tired of the Lefty thing. Dad and I are tired of the Lefty thing. We want to move on to the RD4 thing over there. So hopefully the head was the problem and we can get that fixed, put it back on here and go back to work. If it's this block here, well, then we're going to have to go back to the drawing board. Lefty has just been bound and determined to throw curveballs at us the whole way. First it was the tracks, now it's water in the oil. I mean, it's been a lot of things, but we're not giving up. We like the fight. No, we don't like the fight, but we know how to fight. I guess we're just hard-headed and stubborn, and we don't quit. That's the thing. So, sorry, folks. There's going to be more Lefty content. You know, on the bright side, for those of you that wanted more, they were sad it was going to end.
What are you doing, Dad?
Huh?
It's cocktail time?
Cocktails, yes.
This has been a cocktail day. Actually, the last 2 days have been cocktail days.
You deserve a cocktail.
Yeah, well, Dad's going to have one. I usually don't. I'm going to go in and cook supper. Somehow, we've got 2 4G tractors sitting in the shop with the heads off. And I looked for a new head gasket for Lefty. Caterpillar didn't have any. They're 45 days out. I actually pre-ordered a couple, so I'll have a spare. But I found a new old stock copper head gasket in England on eBay. So I've got that on the way here. If and when we can get this head situation sorted out, I'll be ready to go. Well, at least on the way into the house, I'm treated to a very beautiful sunset. Got them loaded up to town. So, turns out this machine shop we took this to is one that we used to work with that was affiliated with the diesel mechanic shop in town where, well, they used to work on all of our heavy trucks. So they have all 3 of those heads, and we're hoping best case scenario, we got 2 good ones that we can have. Worst case scenario, 1 good one. Well, I mean, best case scenario, at least 1. I don't know. We're actually, I know it sounds weird, but we're kind of hoping the problem was Lefty's head.
And one thing that they mentioned was put a straight edge across the block. And I remember doing this when we put the sleeves in and everything. So we do know we need to clean some of this gasket material off of here. It may be that there was just enough of a belly in here that they mentioned they've seen before, that it let water through, and those pistons were getting water in them.
There's a 2 right there. Ooh, a 2 is tight.
The good news is this is a machine shop that we're very comfortable with. These folks are actually folks that we've actually worked for their family for a long time, and they've worked with us and worked on our equipment and trucks. So
We didn't know they had it. They were in a different business.
Well, we knew they sold out, but they kind of split off and kept a machine shop. So we're we're feeling a lot more comfortable today. Lefty, I have to say you've been remarkably quiet through this whole thing. Do you have anything to say?
Well, sir, the process has been quite exhausting, and I have a terrible headache.
Indeed you do. But you look good. You look really good, Lefty. You've been a trooper through the whole process.
I must say I owe most of it to the cleaner's extraordinary torch skills. They are quite sufficient. But not quite as yours, sir. Yours are extraordinary.
Well, thank you, Lefty. I appreciate it. I'm not so sure the cleaner will. Well, Lefty, you know that terrible headache you've been complaining about? Yeah. It's about to get worse.
Oh, dear.
By worse, I mean the baddest of bad news that we could have expected. Out of 3 4G and early 7J D4400 heads, we have this many that are usable. 0. They're pinhole ones in the real McCoy head. There is a substantial crack out of Lefty's original head, and the early 7J head off of Hannah, Montana has a very substantial crack between the valves. So, you were destined to get water in your engine either way.
We're going to strip all 3 of these heads down. I'm going to take all the pre-combustion chambers in. They're going to bead blast them, clean them up. We're going to pick the best 4, and we're going to continue to look for another head for Lefty. We've got one more opportunity outside. That's RD4 6667. Worst case scenario, and maybe that's why I haven't named it yet. We have one more running D4 out there, and not Buster. I call it No Name right now. This is a 1956 head off of Hannah, Montana. This is the one that's cracked between 2 of the valves. We're going to strip it down. All 4 of these originally came out of the Hannah, Montana, the 1956 head, and they are in excellent shape. So, we're going to have these bead blasted, cleaned up. These were the 3 that came out of Lefty. So, we had this one in Lefty. You can see the yellow paint on there. That replaced this one on Lefty back in number 4. And that came out in 2 pieces. This was number 1 on Lefty, and you can see the buildup and everything in there is really, really bad. We'll have these cleaned up as well, but 2 and 3 are not terrible. Now, we had pulled 3 out and resealed it. These are the copper rings that are in there. You can barely see it probably on the GoPro. They're a double taper. These I would not be afraid to reuse. They're squished down, this one more than this one. They were not leaking. None of these were leaking. But out of these, and then I left that other set of 4. We'll have them all cleaned up. We should have 4 good ones when we go back together. Got the 1956 head. All we have to do is pull the valves. Yeah, you can see the one right here, how pitted these are. This is where it was cracked somewhere in between these valves. So we'll pull these out, take a look at it. The good news is we do have a lot of decent valves that we're probably going to need.
You guys are probably thinking, you have a bunch of D4400 engines. I saw you haul one home that's just an engine, a power plant. And yes, we do, but they are completely different. The heads and the engines are completely different on the 4Gs, all the 4Gs, and the early 7Js, completely different. So what we need is an engine head that is compatible with an early 7J or 4G engine. The difference is on the 5T models, the water passages are sealed with little ferrules and O-rings around the water passage and the head gasket. On the older 7Js and 4Gs, they are sealed completely with the head gasket only. The other difference on the later, which is the 5T heads, is they also have screw-in style pre-combustion chambers. These are a press fit on the early 7Js and 4Gs. You can still get aftermarket combustion chambers for the 5Ts, but you cannot get these ones for the early 7Js and 4Gs. So any of them we pull out, we're definitely going to hang on to. This head's stripped down. We're going to press out the valve guides. That'll be the only other salvageable part of this head. Right here, I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but you can see the crack between those valves. We've about got all the valve guides out of those 3 heads. We're going to keep the 1 head. It might be possible to fix it. It's just cracked between the valves. I've seen it done. Weld it, metal stitch it. grind out the seats again, maybe. But we're not doing that now. Let me show you what we got in mind. We have a lot of D4s here. All of these pretty much cost scrap price. We have 2 here that are running, but we knew when we got all of these that they're going to be parts. Like, it's going to take 3 to 4 to 5 D4s to make one working D4, and that'll also give us a little bit of a cushion with some spare parts just in case. The plan now is to pull this head off of this RD4 6667. Frankly, folks, this tractor is scrap. It's not worth a rebuild. So we're going to pull the head off of it. We're going to take it down to the shop. They're going to magnaflux it, check it out, see if it's any good. I have my doubts. I seriously have my doubts. The engine's froze. I suspect, and knowing what we've learned about D4s, RD4s, these heads are a problem. And it was something that also Chad at Antique Crawler Parts mentioned when we even started 4G 9986. These early tractors, yeah, they're neat, yeah, they're unique, but they had problems. If the head on here is no good, and I'm pretty much thinking that that's probably where we're going to be at. I really don't think that this head on here is going to be any good. What do you think, Little Stripes? That brings us to this one here, which I've been lovingly calling No Name. I haven't named this tractor, which is a good reason. If the RD4 head over there doesn't work, we're going to take the head off of No Name. We know this tractor was running, but I'm still not 100% sure about the head on this one either. Let me show you why. Now, this has a old style radiator cap. It comes off of here. I actually broke it loose, but the problem is I think this sat open for a while. It's got leaves and trash in there and no sign of water or antifreeze anywhere. That's not a good sign. So this one does run. I think the pony motor even runs. In fact, this pony motor is in really good shape. It doesn't have much in play. This one does have the diesel that's leaking into the engine, and quickly, we know what it is. There's actually an O-ring in the front of this fuel pump. We took it apart on Lefty, and there's also a seal by the intermediate front cover that could be a problem. We know how to fix that. We know this one was running. I've never seen it run, so this will be our second choice for a head. Let me show you something with the oil that's a little problematic too. Yes, the diesel's overflowing it, but there's no water in there, and I suspect it's possible the water's getting into the oil in this one too. Now, they did change it. It's super clean, but look how overfull it is. And I don't know if that's diesel. I don't know if there's water in the bottom there. I just don't know. It does smell like diesel. Sadly, when we take apart this RD4, we're going to probably take the pony motor off too. This has the exhaust with the really cool flapper, and it's got a good exhaust on it that we might put on Dad's RD4. We also might use this exhaust manifold on Dad's RD4 as well. Are these rebuildable? Are any of these machines rebuildable? Yeah, sure. All of them are rebuildable. It just takes money, and it takes a lot of money, and it takes more money than any of these tractors are worth to rebuild them. You will never get out of it, at least in my lifetime. I don't suspect I'll ever get out of what we put into Lefty. This RD4's got broken track frames, it's got messed up fenders, it's got cracked radiator side panels. It's just gonna be a basket case, and it's gonna be insurance parts for Dad's RD4 and Lefty and Buster. We're gonna make something out of Buster too. It's just too good of a machine not to. So tomorrow morning, as soon as we get done stripping those heads apart, we got just a couple of valve guides to get out of there. Then we'll get RD4 6667 in there and pull the head off of it. Whenever I come across a part we need, I'll search eBay or just search online and see if they're available. And I found a whole set of new old stock Caterpillar valve guides for D4400 engine, the early 4Gs, and I picked them up because they still have them at Cat. I think they were $55 each, but I got the whole set for a fraction of a price. Had we taken that head to this machine shop and they magnafluxed it and said that it was cracked, that would have been a no-go right there. We would not have continued the project. But we're this far. We're committed. One way or another, I'm going to find a head for Lefty that will work. Dad messed up the head trying to get these valve guides out. How dare you?
Yeah, I know. Since it's going to be a boat anchor. Anyway.
Yeah, we got 3 boat anchors here. We're keeping the one. We were careful with that. Like, normally we would just take this over on the press and press them out. Now we're just kind of tapping them out with a hammer. Surprisingly, most of them came out. This one's been the hardest one because it's a Lefty's original. There they are. Been working in here with some heat today. It's a little chilly outside. Here's the guides we took out, and these ones are a lot longer than the ones off of Lefty. They're half an inch longer. Valve guides. All the valve springs, all the keepers for the valves, and there's our exhaust and intake valves over there. I've got them labeled, so the machine shop will have their choice of which to use. Time for a game of LAOL Vehicle Tetris.
Nights in summertime, I was yours and you were mine. We were young, I was dumb. Now you're happy and you moved on. In my head, I can't forget all the stupid shit you said. And it's not fair, you don't care, but I see you everywhere. It's not fair. You're polite to friends of mine. You were always the one we loved. Called them out when we were done. That's why you took it, top of love. And my mom says me sorry. Spilled me some coffee. She said, what went wrong with you two? Well, I wish I knew. In my head, I can't forget all the stupid shit you said. And it's not fair. You don't care, but I see you everywhere. In my head, I can't forget all the words you never meant. And it's not fair, you don't care, but I see you everywhere. It's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair. So tell me truly, do you think about me, or you're happy with some other girl? Tell me, baby, don't you kinda miss me? But I hope you picture me when you're with her. In my head, I can't forget all the stupid shit you said. And it's not fair, you don't care, but I see you everywhere. It's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair. In my head, I can't forget all the stupid shit you said. And it's not fair, you don't care, but I see you everywhere. It's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair.
Isn't it?
Yeah, that thing's done. There's really nothing we found about this machine that's rebuildable. That, like, you would have to sink tens of thousands of dollars into this, and essentially you'd be rebuilding a different machine. Murder hornets. Yeah, he's alive. Look at him.
Really?
Hey, yeah.
He's probably pretty slow, though.
Yeah, he's slow. Not so tough now, are you, Hornets? That is some of the worst damage to an idler I have ever seen on a D4. They always stick this way with these 2 pistons up.
Where the crank's straight up and down.
Yeah, and you can't get leverage on it to break it loose. This thing is garbage.
Yeah.
Amazingly, the inside water passages are very clean on this. Oh, yeah. Well, we can take it to them. They said they didn't care if it had been sitting at the bottom of an ocean. They'll look at it. This is about as close to the bottom of an ocean as you can get. This is pretty bad. This thing was already sentenced to death.
Oh, look, this one's even off of the
It's off the seat, so is that one over there, because it's all built up with rust and it's pushed them. This is by far the worst I've seen.
Yeah. Think we'll take the head in anyway, have them take a look at it. I'd say there's probably a 10% chance that it's any good, but what the heck? And then we'll move to plan. What are we on now? A, B, C, D, E? Plan E.
Date code on this head is a UCEC.
January 7th, 1937.
Very unique RD4 firewall. Obviously, we're keeping everything we can keep. Gonna keep the service meter. This one's actually not bad. And we're leaking oil. Well, we got the pinion off, but you can see there's a little OD green on that even too. But the bolts are missing here and the safety wire's missing. Oh, look at that.
Is it in there?
Yeah. No bolts. They're all stripped out.
Yeah, that wouldn't have worked, would it?
No. That might be why they parked this thing.
Yeah.
That's not good. So I'm guessing there's probably bolts in that bell housing somewhere.
The catches are still good.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's supposed to be 4 bolts in there.
Oops.
I remember we did a safety wire tutor on this very thing.
Yeah, we did a whole tutorial because you know how to safety wire.
Yeah.
Probably a waste of time, but I went ahead and dumped some old ATF fluid I had in all these. We're going to put a tarp over it. We got the radiator off. We'll cover it. I'll ratchet strap it down. It's pretty much a loss, this part of the tractor anyway. What do you think?
I think we need a place to stockpile parts.
I think so.
A container.
Rest in peace, 4G6667.
Dad and I were just talking. We got a lot done today. Maybe we made progress. We'll take that head down this week and see if it's any good. If it's not, we'll do it all again. I do want to thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. I told Dad today that as far as cleaning this, it would be a lot easier for me if you would just do it.
Yeah. And I am, as usual. Let Greg clean it. He'll clean it, and then I won't have to.
That's worked so far.
Yes, it does, about 99% of the time.
Yeah, it does. That's a problem. That's a problem. Definitely a problem. Not good. 4G6667, you have been condemned to parts.
Your sentence is head removal. Do you have any last words?
Well, you're in luck. I'm not just an evil RD4 part stealer. I'm also a chiropractor. I know what this is. It's the classic RD4 back. Hang tight. There we go. Now, much better.
Yes, I know about your cousin Scully in Minnesota, but he took another approach to his back problems, if you know what I mean.